Gotta be his
Okay, so
girlfriend.
welcome back. Welcome back. Another Monday. Here we are. And right as we're in the waiting room, guys, we usually do this whole song and dance, our usual intros, and we'll get to that. But as we're in the waiting room, just kind of talking before the show, as we always do, we get word that Ruben Owens, one of the premier players in all of high school football, 5-star out the state of Texas, how do you want to use him in your offense, has committed to Louisville over the likes of Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama. Guys, I got to get your reaction because Louisville's on another level recruiting right now compared to what we usually think of Louisville. This is great for the Cardinals. Chris, I'll start with you. Thoughts on this? This is a great pickup.
I mean, it's surprising. I don't know what the hell is going on over there at Louisville. I, here's the here's my thing about that. It's just I can't even hate on it. I'm happy for the kid, whatever he wants to do. That's great. But offensively, I'm trying to figure out where the hell do you fit into that system? Because that is a mesh concept, option based. I don't know. I- Somebody else gonna have to take this because I'm just like, what? Really? Louisville? I mean, a lot of people, not unless I want to say a lot of people, I've heard rumblings around there that quarterback there, a lot of people are high on him around the NFL. And a lot of NFL circles, people like him. And they're looking at him. If he has a pretty good season, he could play his way into maybe early round situation as far as getting drafted. I've seen it. I've seen the team. I don't really see it, but at the same time, they picked up Ruben Owens supposedly, and also DeAndre Moore not too long ago. So I mean, you got to think about it. I don't know what's in the water over there, but something's going on.
JP, what's your thoughts on this, man? Because as soon as you came in, you were laughing at my reaction. What are you thinking about this?
I mean, I was flabbergasted. True, like I mean that in every sense of the word. Like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I'm gonna have to. I mean, Louisville is literally an hour and a half from me. I'm gonna have to drive down there myself and see what's happening because, like, how does he's a 5-star running back? Like, and again, I know that that happens in college football. You get the random 5-star that you know chooses Jackson State, which I mean, again, they have Deion Sanders, so that's kind of understandable. But like, I don't know what's happening there that would make Ruben Owens leave Texas to go to Northern Kentucky.
Jance, what are you thinking, my man?
I'm trying to like look up if he has like any like family connections or any friends or something's or tied to potentially Louisville. But I mean, I don't know, man. I guess shout out to Scott. Shout out to Coach Scott, man. 'Cause he's doing a hell of a job over there when it comes to recruiting. I mean, again, it's Louisville. It's Louisville, Kentucky. It's not the best destination. They don't have the best history when it comes to when it comes to their football. But for some reason, man. I mean, it's whether if it's the connections or potentially because he just felt home over there. You got Texas A&M, the big oil so-called money over there. You got Texas, over there kind of killing in the recruiting. And the fact that he didn't want to be a part of it or any of the other big time programs, man, it's I guess it's kind of shocking because for the most part, these big time blue chip recruits, they go to blue chip schools. So I'm shocked. I'm lost for words. I did not expect him to go to Louisville, but it is what it is. I mean, good luck to the kid. And hopefully everything can hopefully work out. I mean, it's not the end. I mean, we got early signing day period. I mean, we got July, we got the fight, we got the fall period, we got the early signing day period, or even the second coming to that in February. So we got a long ways to go. But clearly, Scott, Coach Scott over there at Louisville, he's done a great job. He's to convince a kid like that at that running back position in the state of Texas, out of all those those premier players over there and all those schools. That's just extremely impressive. So yeah, shout out to Coach Scott. He's done a hell of a job, man, so far.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Chris. You were talking about scheme, and usually, I'm all over that. But the top 2 running backs this year, one of the reasons why I've been so boneheaded for my Tide, right? Like either push Ruben Owens or push Richard Young. Pick one. I don't say this lightly, and I'm not saying they are scheme-proof, but these two running backs are as close to scheme-proof at the running back position as you could really get, right? I mean, immensely talented. I got to see Ruben Owens live on a 7-on-7 field, and he is real good. I mean, like him as a receiver, you hear how good he is, you see how good he is on film, but then actually seeing it in person, this is a great pickup for Louisville. And it's surprising to me, you know, we talk about Texas, but Texas A&M was hot on the trail for Ruben Owens as well. And Texas A&M has been putting together historic classes. So really interesting to see how this ends out, what Louisville is able to do outside of this. This is great for the ACC because that's a conference that desperately needs somebody else to really emerge. We've talked about Miami. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I can't think of the kid's name, and I know that he went there because you know it's home for him. But if you think about it, a few years back, and I think maybe 3 years back, that wide receiver that went to Maryland, it kind of strikes you as that move right there.
Raheem Jarrett.
Yes, everybody in the nation wanted him, and he chose to go to Maryland. You know, I haven't really had heard too many rumblings from him, but maybe you guys have or so. But at the same time, you know. It's a choice, you know. They're elite. They're going to be elite NFL prospects, but you're just saying, okay. I mean, okay, you know, you're going to have a clearer path to probably start or be able to play and be, you know, in a heavy rotation. But you just kind of look at it as something's going on over there, something's in the water. So obviously, he's selling something to those kids that has them go there. I think the question that I have is, how long do we think he stays committed? Because I think we still need to see the season play out. You know, a lot of teams like Texas A&M, they may go 8-5, 5-7, right? And they still get these elite recruiting classes. But now with NIL, they have that advantage as well, or they had that advantage. But you're looking at Louisville and you're saying, okay, do you really see yourself staying with this system, knowing that one, you still don't have an elite prospect at quarterback coming in that class, and two, the starter, the guy that you probably could play with and make some noise, is most likely going to the NFL this year if he's not already a senior and he doesn't have a extra year, COVID year, redshirt year, whatever the case may be. You got to think about that. But at the same time, I mean, happy for the kid. If that's where he wants to go, then let him go, and you know, hopefully he balls out.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis, thank you for coming in. He says, hey, he's late, but hope everyone had a good day and hope everybody have a happy Father's Day. JP, didn't get to tell you, but hope your first Father's Day was good. Number one dad in here. But I want to get to this right here because we did need to talk about some Oklahoma recruiting. With all the crazy recruiting storylines that are going around, our first question is dedicated to Oklahoma, so what better way to start? JP, I want to start with you on this because Matt asked, is OU going to have a top 15 class? Before I pass it to you, I'll briefly, I would be shocked if OU didn't have a top 15 class. Even in Brent Venables' first full year, I'd be shocked, especially after what he did last season with that recruiting class. I mean, really great stuff he did there. We've talked about that enough. JP, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think OU is undoubtedly going to have a top 15 class. I think more of the question is going to be top 10 class if we will reach that, and I believe we will. You know, there were some rumblings after the Champion family barbecue. Obviously, we had Caleb Hicks commit just recently. There's a couple other ones that you know are looking really, really promising. A couple other commits that are silent commits that I obviously won't say or anything like that. But I think that, you know, Brent Venables and the way he does recruiting, we're not going to have early commits like a Ruben Owens at Louisville this early. The way he does his style, I think we'd have more of a late run just because he wants guys to be committed, to know that they know. That means, hey, if you need to take other visits, go ahead. It's not that you can't take visits. Just don't be, you know, committed to us when you take visits, type of thing. So, yeah, I absolutely think that he's going to have that OU is going to have a top 15 class, and I think it'll just get better once the season starts as well.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, echo the same sentiments that JP had. I mean, that's what I said last week. It's just kind of a wait and see approach right now, simply because I mean, just everything is different, all the way down to the. I mean, just literally the approach. I mean, with Riley would have had 2 or 3 mini barbecues and then a huge barbecue, in this summer period or whatnot. During the season, they would have uh 20, 30 kids, show up unannounced, unofficial, official visits, all the rest of that stuff, just running them in and out each game, each weekend, of each home game. But like this year, it's totally different because BV seems like he's going to do, okay, we got these 2 big barbecues, we got these 2 big events for juniors, seniors, all the rest of that stuff. But literally, hey, if you're going to commit to us, but just know, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's not the worst approach because of what I know JP and I feel like we're going to see on the field, the end product that we're going to get. I feel like it's going to make, a lot of kids, especially with these coaches that we have now. I really feel like they're trying to establish relationships with these kids and reestablish relationships with these high schools, just saying like, hey, I'm a new coach here at this new school, but at the end of the day, I'm still the same guy that you trusted with your kids before. You get what I'm saying? So different role, maybe having a little bit more leeway or whatever the case may be, but you're just saying like, hey, you're establishing relationships that are going to last a long time, and you're going to be able to hopefully create more pipelines out there as far as the recruiting trails go, because it seems like Florida, now obviously Texas, but Florida is a place of emphasis right now. But you're just looking to see, can we still get Cali Sooners? Can we still get kids from all over the nation? And, recruiting here in Oklahoma as well, because you may find some dominant reps as well. So I'm excited about it. I'm just waiting for the splash. I thought that the 4-star running back that we picked up, that was good. It was always good to see a 4-star running back come through, especially in this system here, because it's so, it's run game heavy. So I thought that was pretty good too.
Yeah. Now, I want to go to Jance because I want to get some outside perspective on this as well. You look at Oklahoma's recruiting right now, Jance. What stands out to you? What are you seeing, and just your general thoughts on the whole situation?
Just that Brent Venables is not like he's a nonsensical guy. He's a guy that for the most part he demands excellence. Clearly, like I said this a million times, but Brent Venables is trying to establish his own thing compared to what Lincoln Riley and some of the past predecessors of some of those past Oklahoma coaches have been there for years. Guys like Bob Stoops, he's trying to really set his own legacy at this point. And I feel like we're seeing a different approach, at least from my standpoint of Oklahoma recruiting. And I think that, again, with the move going with Oklahoma moving to the SEC, there's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of things that Oklahoma is going to focus on first that they weren't really targeting before. You kind of asked the question both those guys, just, whether if now Oklahoma is going to have a top 10, top 15 recruiting class. I absolutely believe so. I think that this could be a year where they could focus a lot more in the trenches, very similar to what Texas tried to do, what Sarkisian and Texas tried to do last year, of really trying to establish and focus more on both the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I think Oklahoma would definitely make that a huge focal point, especially when you have a recruiter and the coach that Todd Bates is, one of the best in the business. They're definitely going to make that a huge focal point. So I'm interested in guys like guys like Nicholas Harbor, some of these these blue chip recruits, top edge rushing prospects, top guys that you can focus on the interior offensive line or the interior defensive line. I'm really interested to see how Oklahoma can potentially establish it and maybe getting some of those blue chip recruits or again, Brent Venables is not, he's known for working with a lot of 2-3-star guys and turn them into straight monsters and just making them work in the system. So for the most part, I'm intrigued, very, very intrigued to see what Oklahoma does, because again, it's a new era for Brent Venables, a new era for the Oklahoma program. And, in 2-3 years, they're going to make their move to the SEC, which is going to literally change, not just Oklahoma and Texas recruiting. It's going to change, I think, the SC recruiting as a whole. So it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be fun to watch. But, yeah, man, I mean, like I said, just intrigued to see what Brent Venables does with that program.
Well, one of the things I talked about the other day is whenever Oklahoma got a few commitments. I was talking about, and I did a segment in the video, do stars matter? Right. And the answer to that is I find in most things in life, you have two camps. Some say that stars don't matter. Some say stars are, the end all be all. I think the answer is in the middle, right? Do stars matter? Absolutely. You want 5 stars, right? If you can get 5 stars, you want 5 stars. But don't be down on a 3-star prospect because they're not a 5-star prospect, right? How many 3 stars have we seen excel well past 5 stars at their very position from the same recruiting class at the same institution? It happens all the time.
Yep.
So that's why I did in that video. I'm not discounting stars. You're much more likely from a statistical point of view to win a college football playoff and win a national championship with those blue chip prospects. So stars do matter, but they're not the end all be all. The ability to identify talent that fits in your system is far more important than a star ranking from a recruiting service. And these recruiting services generally do a pretty good job. But if Brent Venables has that guy in camp and he sees him and he's like, hey, this is a top 3 guy, I think, in his position, I want him. Doesn't matter if he's a 3-star. You know what I'm saying? At that point, Venables sees something that he likes, and that transcends because the star ratings are a baseline. You get what I mean? Like there's a baseline attributes, and that's how you're rated. These coaches have their own way of evaluating prospects. They have their own way of doing this. So the star ratings are almost not arbitrary at that point, but they become far more of a guideline than biblical, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense because a living, breathing example of that is, as much as I'm sure JP and I would hate to give him credit. Well, up north a little bit, of us, that boy Gundy is a great coach. I mean, he's going to have him a quarterback and he's going to have him some receivers. Like they may not be superstars, but he's going to have him a couple of receivers out there who could make it happen. Get what I'm saying? He's going to be able to put together a scheme. I mean, even going on the defensive side of the ball, look at what they did last year. They took a bunch of guys that weren't highly talented, but they developed them. They developed them into what they were, where they understood that defense so well that it was just, I mean, there were no working parts. They were whole. So they were ready to go right out the gates because they already knew, they understood the assignment from there. But, I think Oklahoma State is a great example of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's a great example as well. I think that perfectly summarizes exactly the point I'm making. You have a bunch of guys who are playing well beyond their star rating. Yeah. And so at that point, it's all about identification and development. Now, one thing I want to ask before we move on to some different topics, some different things, if I had to get a prospect from each of you that you felt like was a must get for the Oklahoma Sooners that you're currently locked in a battle for, what's the prospect you would point me to? Chris, I'll start with you.
I'd say probably I think that the Anthony Hill kid, honestly.
That's a good answer.
I think it's him. I mean,
really,
I would love to have the kid. I think we get him. That's another staple of our class. With him and Jackson Arnold, I mean, I think that's a staple. I think kids will want to definitely come play with those two because I don't know. I just that's the kid right there. That's the name that pops for me.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. JP, what's the name for you?
Name for me is Caden Green. I think that there's been a lot of not big chatter, but there's been chatter here and there about beating Bo and just his recruiting, and ultimately, for whatever reason, development. Now, Chris and I have talked about this ad nauseum with other OU fans. Most of us think that had a lot to do with strength and conditioning program that was going on, and that it should see a jump with Schmitty being in there now. But being able to get another big time recruit like him, and then being able to develop him, I think will be huge. So, in my opinion, that's what I'm looking for. Just getting a big, solid O lineman in this next class because it's been a little bit of time since we've had one of those.
Yeah. Jant, same question. And then I want to come back to something, Indy, you said, and I want to dive deeper into that.
There's a couple names that I probably have in mind. I probably would go more with Nicholas Harbor. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Brent Venables, for the most part, we all know he has a kind of a foothold in the DMV area. He's had a prior relationship with him before, so I feel like getting a really big time blue chip prospect from one of the best high schools in the nation, St. John's, I think would be a huge get, especially because this kid is an explosive athlete. I mean, this kid's been trending all over social media. Because of just how explosive he is, how quick he is. I mean, the kid is breaking records at 6'5", 230, which is unheard of. So I feel like getting a huge splash player like that to come to your program, I think would be absolutely huge, as far as momentum recruiting. Speaking of Nicholas Harbor, I heard the kid can definitely, he's built a lot of great relationship as well. I heard he's also a heck of a recruiter himself. So I think getting a kid like that, I feel like would just be pretty big for the program. And again, it also addresses the trenches need. Especially with Todd Bates on that side of the line, helping a kid like that, I think would be huge for Oklahoma.
Yeah, he would be a massive win for any institution that gets him. I mean, you're talking about one of the craziest talents I've seen in quite some time, right? How he'll develop, I mean, remains to be seen. But from a pure athletic standpoint, goodness gracious, that kid is unbelievable. Now, I did want to go back and talk about something, Indy, you had brought up, because I want to hear from you on this, right? I can understand if OU fans are, and questioning is a strong word, but for lack of a better word, questioning Beatonbow's recruiting, right? I mean, the guy developed so well, you'd think he'd be getting 5 stars, but what's the question on the development? Because that's an area, I mean, OU is as good as anybody in the nation consistently at that development, at least I thought. Could be wrong, but what's the thoughts there?
To be honest, it just really has come in the last 2 years.
Okay, I can get the recruiting. Development to me is just like that's solid.
Well, right, and that's what I mean is just like the way the offensive line has performed the last 2 years specifically is why people were clamoring about development. Just because obviously 2020 is COVID year, so people gave excuse for that, but then again with the expectations that we all had for 2021 and how that ended up, and Marquise Hayes and Tyrese Robinson, for as highly touted as they were going into the season, they didn't really pan out too well in the draft. So there's just different things like that people would make people kind of question Bill Beatonbow. I never did or have. Chris, I don't know if you have either. There are a couple people that feel that way, but me personally, I trust him. He's Joe Moore O-line winning. I mean, he's done that before. He's been as consistent as you could really be, sans the COVID year. And then again, the year where we have a coach that bails, you know what I mean? Again, you have people in the comments saying, I mean, we have a little bit of a young line too. Andrew Rame, I think, is going to be really good. Anton Harrison, I think, is also going to be really good. And so, again, you get those guys packed with Schmitty. I think you're going to see a whole different O-line this year. And I did want to address something else, too. Somebody else said that it wasn't – that we got Savion Byrd a couple of years ago, which is true. And so they said it hasn't been that long since we got a big-time offensive line recruit. I just meant the last 2 cycles since we have. And obviously, again, there's been a lot going on since then. But just want to see that offensive line recruiting is picking back up again, even with a new scheme and a new system.
The only time I ever questioned Beatonbow is when he, would leave Eric Swinson in the game, and when Eric Swinson would get beat on almost every other play. But other than that, I would say, I haven't really questioned him. I've been trying to distance anytime I talk about, you're trying to distance myself from the whole Raleigh talk. But is it fair to bring up the fact that Beatonbow they weren't meshing that well last year? He didn't get to actually play the guys that he wanted to play last year. I mean, That's been out there for a while. It's not like it's a well-kept secret. But, I mean, do we get to use that excuse as well? But, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think that the development is going. I just think the nastiness and the grittiness. But I think what Raleigh was asking them to do, I just think that, and like I told you, like going back to last week, whenever we talked about it, if you think about it, you said, what was the biggest threat to USC? And I said, it may be Raleigh's play calling, because you saw last year, you see the year before, you were like, okay, no, it's fine. They'll be back next year. And then boom, you saw what the product was last year. And so when you look at that, I'm just, like I told you, Tyler, GT pool, GT counter, or whatever the case may be, they have a lot of tape out on that. So when you're asking guys to do that stuff or whatnot, you're not putting them in the spots, because if you look at what Raleigh wanted to run, it wasn't really that effective until he put Caleb in there. But before he put Caleb in there, what was effective? Like I always say, go back to the K-State game. That zone scheme. The zone scheme is what we should have been running all last year.
All year.
I'm not a coach. So I can't question him. Maybe he saw something that obviously I didn't see. But when you ask if you ask me what best fit our team, like what suited our team well, it was a zone scheme. They had so much success with that, with Spencer in the lineup or with Caleb in the lineup. It didn't really matter. That was the strength of the offensive line. But he was so adamant about running GT pool, GT counter just straight up that he didn't spread it out and help the offensive line any.
Yeah, JP, I saw you wanted to add something in, and before I pass it to you, just to answer real quick, you asked if it's fair. I don't know the ins and outs as well as you and obviously JP. Y'all would know the situation with Lincoln much better than I, so I'll leave y'all to talk about that. But JP, I thought, brought up something earlier that I find to be incredibly compelling in Biedenbo's favor. And in fairness, rare sight, we have a Texas fan in the chat who's actually defending Biedenbo, talking about how the year prior he'd lost a great center. But the Benny Wiley, JP, I think that's an incredibly compelling factor in Biedenbo's favor, getting in Schmitty.
Well, and I wanted you to put this comment by Carvan Jackson up on the screen if we can.
I will.
Because this is a part of that, okay? His development is not garbage. Like, Creed Humphrey was the best center in the league last year.
Yeah.
He was the best center in the league last year as a rookie. So he came from Oklahoma, okay? Not to mention, again, we talked about the 2018 O-line, right, that had, Orlando, or 2017 had Orlando Brown, but then you have 2018 with Cody Ford, at the tackle, Bobby Evans, right? Drew Samia, Ben Powers, all in the NFL right now. Most of them are playing consistently. Orlando Brown has been a Pro Bowler his entire career. So I don't want to hear that he's not a good developer. Now, on the offensive line are way too fat and all that stuff. That's not true because literally that's what Benny Wiley tried to make them not do. Benny Wiley cut them down. That was kind of the issue. He made them look good instead of be strong. And that was a lot of the issue, and that's why we weren't getting any pop off of the ball. Now the pass blocking, some of that can be attributed to that as well. But that just is a reckless statement to me.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say, this is something that Chris and I said, and Chris, you and I, we pointed this out week 3.
Yeah.
We were talking about one of the OU offensive linemen, because due to circumstances they couldn't control, I don't want to put their name attached to this, but one of the OU offensive linemen who have a very high ceiling, they were getting blown off the ball. It was very obvious, right? Like you could draw a line by the line of scrimmage where it was compared to where they were. And that points to strength and conditioning, right? Because that's not a technique thing. It was a pure strength. So the Schmitty hire, look, there's a reason why I considered that one of the best hires of the offseason, right? When I did my video, the Todd Bates and Schmitty hire, not talking about head coaches, but talking about assistant coaches, I had as 2 of the biggest hires in all of the offseason. I had the Travaris Robinson hire by Bama on there as well, just because of his history with development and recruiting, J.C. Horn to the first round. But those 2 guys right there are fantastic. We could talk about OU recruiting around and around. Before we leave off of that, I did want to pass it off to you 3 once again to kind of add in your final comments, things that maybe people should be aware of, or just where OU you think y'all are really separating in a lot of y'all's battles right now.
I'll let you go, JP.
Yeah. Again, I think that, like Chris alluded to earlier, the relationships that um, the coaches are building with these kids, and obviously you hear about that almost at every program, right? Relationships, and we heard about that with Lincoln Riley. But there seems to be something different about this coaching staff, and obviously you have the sole mission, which is literally an entire staff dedicated to serving our uncommon legacy, to seeing these young men grow and be just good men in general, which the world needs, right? Like, so when you're talking to these parents, you're getting to see that it's deeper than just football. And ultimately, I think that when you have a team that cares about each other, I was talking to my assistant AD about this today as we're planning out our next year at my athletic program. But when you have teams that are talented, right? But then you also have teams that kind of usurp all their talent and somehow are better than one of the most talented teams. Why does that happen? And obviously, you hear at Iowa State they said 5-star culture, right? Over Texas, 5 stars, whatever. Same thing, right? Is when you have a common goal and you have coaches that care about players and people, you can do a lot of different things. And so I think when you can mix that with talent, it's kind of scary. And to be honest, obviously, I know Saban gets a bad rap sometimes, at least in terms of like being hard on his players. But you guys know more than anybody that he cares about them.
Oh yeah,
That's why you can get the most out of them. So when you get that combination, it's dangerous. When you have somebody that actually cares about you but will hold you to the highest standard of accountability, right? And you're at a blue chip type of school, blue blood type of school. Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to look. It's one thing that I think as time has gone on, people are starting to see like the other sides of Saban. But Bama fans, we've always said like, yeah, the guy can come off as abrasive and stuff, but if you really read into what he's saying and you really listen, the guy cares very, very deeply about his players and trying to do what's best for them. And I think nobody could dispute that's exactly what Brent Venables has been doing. The soul mission, love that, right? That's one of the biggest reasons I got into this, trying to make this a career, is stuff like that. So love to see that. Chris, Jance, what are y'all's final thoughts before we talk about some Alabama recruiting?
I would just say, like I said, relationship building. I mean, they're establishing and reestablishing relationships with a lot of these kids. I think that at the end of the day, what I'm most excited about is just to see true competition come to OU. And what I mean by that is just the depth chart, just improving on that depth chart where your ones, your twos, even your threes can get in there and they can mix in and handle themselves accordingly. I think that was kind of something that kind of caught the staff probably it was a pleasant surprise to them. The fact that they were like, hey, there's actually a bunch of talent. There's a lot of talent in each room. We just got to, develop these guys. We got to come in here and fix some things, fix a lot of things, but, fix some of their small things, at least at first, but excited to see what this class is going to shape up to be like. You already see some of the foundation being laid. You're just waiting for, if not those big names, just those names, the guys that they went out there and they saw with their eyes. I'm going to trust the staff and I'm going to put my faith in them and just go from there, honestly.
Yep. Jance, what are you thinking before you and I get into our home territory and now we get?
No, I'm just looking at the process, and I think that this process is going to be a little bit slower than I think than some Oklahoma fans are definitely going to be expecting, only because they were so used to what the recruiting success that Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley had over the years. Mm-hmm. But now that you're bringing in an entirely brand new coaching foundation in such a short amount of time, even though you have some really, really incredible hires, and for the most part, we've all been praising some of these guys. Of how of not just good coaches they are, not just on but off the field, but again, these guys are excellent recruiters. But it's going to take some time to again establish these relationships, build trust with these kids, and just for the most part, you got the process is kind of a little bit slow. So the fact that you're not seeing these huge big names commit to Oklahoma yet. I mean, like I said, it's going to take some time. The February process is when that's when it will just boom for Oklahoma. Like everything will just kind of go off and everything will be set in stone. But for the most part, man, these kids are they're gonna have to enjoy the process. They're gonna take their visits. They're gonna have as much fun as possible. This is a one-time opportunity for a lot of these guys, and they want to make sure that everything is set in stone. So I feel like the one thing Brent Venables is doing is that he is making sure that he's giving kids enough time, not really rushing them. But for the most part, just like checking up, like for the most part, just checking up on these kids, saying like, hey, how are you doing? How's your family? How is your grades going? Not really focusing that much on the football aspect of it, but focusing that much on just kind of, the more important things of life. Something that Nick Saban does. He does that all the time with his recruits. Barely even talks football with these guys. Always talks about, how's your life going? How's the family? Just the outside stuff of football, which, for the most part grows a lot on these kids and makes them feel like, they're being cared for. Like, hey, this could be more of a father. This could be a father figure, especially if I'm out of state. This could be someone that I can rely upon, that I can trust. And that's probably one of the most important parts in recruiting is, can you gain a kid's trust, and can you build upon a relationship with this person, so that they can look for you not just as a role model, but as a potential father figure in their life and their livelihood. Because some of these kids that are being recruited, they don't have dads in their life. I mean, Father's Day just passed, but for the most part, a lot of these kids don't even have these role models, these men that they can look up to. So that's why this is so important, especially from an 18, 19-year-old or 17-year-old kid's perspective. You need that in their life, especially in this growing age. For the most part, man, I think Brent Venables and that coaching staff, they're doing a heck of a job establishing a relationship with these kids, building it onto it. And like I said, they'll be fine. Whether if it's going to be in December, whether if it's going to be in February, they'll be fine.
Yeah, recruiting is going to look different, but that's just the different process, right? It's going to look different. It'll all work itself out, right? As Bama fans always have said, we've kind of coined the phrase, trust the process.
Trust the process.
Trust this process. One thing I will add, for Oklahoma fans, anybody worried, right, about where Oklahoma may stand in recruiting right now, I did see someone say it earlier. Travis, you were the one who said it earlier, but it's going to take me a while to go up there and pin it. So I'll just kind of convey what you were saying. Travis pointed it out earlier. You look right now, Alabama's not in the top 10. Jansen,
47th.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Jansen's worried. A few years ago, Alabama was 55th in the nation in April. They finished that recruiting class with the greatest recruiting class that had ever been signed, which A&M broke. But it goes to paint the picture. Signing day isn't until December. Look, recruiting is fun. It's fun to talk about, but it's not the end all be all until that name hits the dotted line. And there is still nothing but time and opportunity between now and then. So transitioning into some Alabama, because Alabama got some great news this week, ending up in the final two for a top tier offensive tackle. And Jance, you and I know the offensive line woes that happened at Alabama last year. I'm just so happy. They're identifying 5-star offensive tackles, blue chip offensive tackles. While we're on stream tonight, we may get a commitment from Wilkin Formby. Before we went live, we had Reuben Owens going to Louisville. So that'll be interesting to see. But what are you thinking as far as recruiting goes right now, Jance? Bama's in the middle of a lot of top tier battles, and it's going to be interesting to see how they end out.
Well, thank God. And I believe it was Caden Proctor that had Alabama in his top 2.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank God that, because we need help, man. I mean, we are in desperate need of help. Listen, 2020, you mentioned before, 2021, we had the former greatest recruiting class of all time, when we had around 5 blue chip offensive linemen. 3 of those guys were 5-star recruits. But they're just not ready yet. I mean, JC Latham is probably the only person that's going to start for us that could start, but even then it's kind of a 50-50 battle. But yeah, it's just Tommy Brockermeyer unfortunately has to deal with injuries. We're just James Brockermeyer is just not ready yet. He's kind of underweight. He's still a little bit underweight. We just don't really have the guys yet established. And our 2019 class, our 2020 class, a lot of those guys are either transferring or they're not really there yet. They just haven't really lived up to expectations. So we don't. This is not. Unfortunately, this is not 2016 or 2017 where we can lose 4 dudes to the NFL and then we can just rotate them in like it's just nothing. I mean, I feel like we've kind of in a way we've kind of hit a wall a little bit where we have to try to figure out ways to work around it, because we can't have a situation again where Bryce Young was the most pressure quarterback in the SEC. He was the most sacked quarterback in the SEC. We ranked in the bottom tier of all college football teams as far as most allowing the most pressures. We can't have that again. Losing a guy like Evan Neal hurts, and now you have to try to replace that talent with some young guys with Jason. And again, J.C. Latham, he might have they put him in at guard, I believe, in the spring game, so he's not really ready yet to play at that tackle position. So Ekiyor for the most part has been he did not have a good season last year. Granted, he lost 30 pounds, so he's trying to become lighter. I think he's kind of addressed his issue, but I just don't know if he's going to be that same dude that he was back in 2020. It's just, we got question marks all over the offensive line. So I just hearing some good news for our offensive line is huge, because that's the only area that I think any Bama fan is concerned with. It's the offensive line. I get comments all the time about with Bama fans that say, "Oh, you just gotta trust the process." But I'm like, I listen, I trust the process, man, but that offensive line, man, I mean, people don't realize how bad that line was last year.
I trust the process, but I also trust my eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched it.
Like, people really don't, like, people talk about, Texas offensive line was bad, or this school's like, our offensive line was worse. Like,
no. Y'all made it to the national championship.
Was not worse.
Yeah, y'all made it to the national championship. Let's not go that far.
In all seriousness, our offensive line graded lower than Texas's offensive line. That's a real stat. Yeah, Bryce was
worse
back in the nation.
It was horrible. When you got to kick your starting center to right tackle because you had nobody else that could fill in that role. That's a problem. That's a big problem.
Let me come.
Your starting center.
That really happened too.
Let me come in here real quick. So, Gents, I'm trying not to pick on you, all right? But I have to ask you guys a real question, okay? Maybe it's not the offensive line. How confident are you guys in your new offensive line coach, or is he new? Eric Wolford, I believe.
Actually, I love this question. I am doing about my 8th watch through of Bama's season. I have I have about 10 colleges picked out right now that I'm re-going over their seasons, taking notes. And I actually have written down, I'm on the A&M game right now, just finished the 3rd quarter of it right before we hopped on here. That's painful. There were times where we would have a blitz run against us, and you would hear Gary Danielson saying, "Oh, they overloaded the blitz. They sent more than they could handle." And I'm sitting there and I'd pause it and I'd count and be like, "No, they sent 5 and we had 6 to 7 dedicated blockers. Nobody picked up the right thing." I think it was a combination of a few things. One, I think that not necessarily that we missed on understanding who we needed in that class that was so great, but I also think the COVID year kind of messed with everybody's ability to pick who they wanted to add into that class, because you were more at the mercy of the ranking sites than ever before because of the lack of ability to actually be able to evaluate prospects. I think that hurt Bama in particular because of the way Nick Saban likes to do it. I mean, now y'all get it now with Brent Venables. If you get an offer for Alabama, it's an offer to camp, right? Your committable offer happens at camp. Now, I don't think OU does that, but the OU has the same thing of, if you want an offer, you camp. We're going to see you with our eyes. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-star or a 0-star. We're going to see you. You weren't able to do that during the COVID year. So did that mess with some things? Possibly. But I think we would be remiss if we put it all on the players. I was shocked by some of the miscues on that offensive line, and it was coaching. It had to be coaching. Yeah. So the new offensive line coach, Eric Wolford, coming in from Kentucky, has statistically improved every offensive line he's been at. It's just going to be how much is the question. Now, from the outside looking in, I'm interested in hearing from Chris and JP. What are your thoughts on all of this, right? Not only Bama's offensive line status, we've talked about that, but on some Bama recruiting, because, you inevitably hear things through the grapevine, just keeping up with recruiting. So want to hear y'all's thoughts on everything. JP, I'll start with you and then go to Chris.
Yeah, I mean, on your offensive line, I know just from watching at the end of the year last year, and even talking to you guys that it's not in a great situation. But ultimately, the quality of recruit and offensive line that Bama often gets, I think hopefully will work itself out. Like you mentioned, the COVID year was rough for a lot of people. Obviously, you had a coaching transition and losing Kyle Flood as well. And so, and obviously you got a new offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien. So hopefully this year will be a little bit better. But I agree. I think that Bryce Young definitely needs to not be as pressured as he was. And I think, it's a testament to the type of quarterback he is that he had the year he did with the offensive line you guys had in the SEC. As far as the recruiting goes, like you guys said earlier, you guys are Bama. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna eventually win probably about 80% of your battles. It's just gonna happen. I don't think you guys need to be worried there. Obviously, A&M can say all they want that they're doing it cleanly. We all know that's not true. But it's the tradition in the program. How dare people say, okay, Jimbo, okay, relax. But no, you guys will be just fine. I'm not worried about it.
Chris, your thoughts on the situation?
Like I said, to me, after talking to you and Jant so much about it, week in and week out last season, like I said, my focus is more or less on the coaching, simply because, is Bill? Is he going to call better plays this year? Can Wolford get that offensive line to where they need to be? Because it's not like Bryce Young needs a lot of time, but he needs to be upright most of the time. He doesn't need to be hurried all the time, right? Defensively, you guys are going to be good, but at the same time, week in, week out, it seems like there's an inconsistency in the scheme as far as what you guys think that Golding should be running and what he is running. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, a lot of those guys are coming back. I think one thing that I would say, especially, it doesn't really truly affect this year, because we're talking about the 23 class and Bryce Young should be gone next year or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I would go as far as to say this year and next year, you're definitely going to need your running back room to be healthy and be pretty formidable like it has been in the past, because working in a new quarterback, no matter if it's was it Milroe? I think Milroe, or if it's Arch, or if it's even I think the Ty Simpson kid, right?
Yeah. Holstein will be on campus, but it's going to be tough for a freshman to beat out Milroe or Ty Simpson.
You think so?
Look, I'm going to tell you this. I think Jalen Milroe is a lot better than a lot of people realize. I think the kid is very, very gifted. Ty Simpson, apparently they're very pleased with where he is. Now, a long ways to go, but he just got on campus. So, nobody's expecting him to come in. We have Bryce. So, by all accounts, they're very pleased with where he is as of right now. But Jalen Milroe is a name. I think a lot of people kind of have it as a foregone conclusion that he won't be the next guy. I'm not so sure, man. If he continues to develop as a passer, watch out. Watch out.
Honestly, I think that's probably the point of emphasis. I would say, we're not going to sit here and act like you guys don't have Milroe, Simpson already. You said the Osteen kid, but if Arch comes there, quarterback is kind of a question right now. Do you guys feel like you have that guy on campus, or are you thinking that you guys need to look elsewhere as far as this recruiting cycle?
I feel good with the quarterback room. I'm not going to say I think that there's 100% a guy in there, but I do like the young guys we have in there. Milroe was a guy that was kind of known. If we can continue developing him, his ceiling is incredibly high. Ty Simpson, much the same. So with Bryce being there this year, I am very optimistic about the quarterback room, actually, very much so. I'm actually very pleased with the quarterback room. I'm interested to hear Jance, though. What's your thoughts on that?
I do like the quarterback room, but I will say this, that if next year, if you feel, like there's no confidence there. Like you just kind of just see that, okay, you know what, this is not working out. That this is the beauty about the transfer portal, is that you have a huge destination like Alabama, and I already know that there's going to be some guys, some quarterbacks out, some big time quarterbacks that are going to be like, is this place really the right fit for me? And this is where, the transfer portal can help you out in this situation if you don't really like it. But going back to our original point about this, is that this is why potentially getting a player like Caden Proctor or maybe getting a Francis would be huge, because you got to get those blue chip players, and you got to get those 5 stars. You have to get the right guys that can fit in your system. And again, last year, I guess this is not really a huge thing, but normally when you get a 5-star tackle, and this is going all the way back to 2005, man. I mean, every freshman 5-star tackle that we've ever had throughout Alabama's history were day 1 starters until last year happened. We didn't have one on potentially one of the worst offensive line we ever had since 2000, even worse than 2007 actually. So
Saban era.
Yeah, it's the worst in the Saban era. And again, yeah, that's going all the way back to when we were 7-6 when we lost to Louisiana. So, it's important to really now for 2023 to get this recruiting class in order and to try to create some depth beyond that offensive line, because going into 2023, not everyone's going to be like Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young, yes, there's a lot of things he needs to work on. But at the same time, I don't think people really truly understand the difficulty of what he had to do with that offense, dealing with Bill O'Brien shenanigans, dealing with Doug Marrone. And I heard that and for the most part, I heard that Doug Marrone, man, he had heat. He got a lot of heat from Saban. So I think a lot. And then the players. And then for the most part, you got to deal with some of those guys there that just, you can't coach Emil Ekiyor getting blown up 5 times by Jaquelin Roy in the LSU game or the Auburn game where he's just loose, just for the most part loose, getting blown up in the backfield. The majority of you can't coach that. Javon Cohen messing up at times where he just shouldn't be. We had to switch our centers from Darian Dalcourt to all the way from Jay. I mean, we had to switch constantly in rotation because we just didn't have stability. Like you can't. I don't know what else. I mean. You got to do a better job coaching wise, but for the most part, it was a mess with the offensive line, and Bryce Young had to do all that. So when he's gone, if he's dealing with that challenge, how do you expect guys like Jalen Miro, Ty Simpson, or even Eli Holston, or if we're lucky enough to get Archie Manning, how do you expect those young guys to deal with that amount of pressure to follow up what Bryce Young had to do? That's going to be tough. So so for the most part, again, we are Bama. Alabama will get some top blue chip recruits, but it is this year. I can't stress enough. It is very, very important that they address the offensive line. 2021 we did a good job doing that, but for the most part, we don't know how many of those guys are even going to play. We don't even know how many of those guys are going to make a huge contribution to this team. So for the most part, we got to try to continue to build some depth on the offensive line, because 2023 could be a problem if we don't really address that issue.
So
yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to jump in and say, I think one thing also to think about when it comes to Bama and some of the lapses that they had or whatnot last year, I think you got to point out the fact that the SEC was a bit better than what it's been in the past few years. Meaning that there were some teams. Look at Arkansas, for example. We talked about Utah last week. I call it that Iowa State syndrome. A lot of these teams this year, I mean, you're looking at Arkansas, Utah's, teams like that, right? They haven't been here in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them never been here, right? So now you kind of got that, you got the eye on you. Everybody's eyes are on you because everybody's expecting you to have a really good season and upset, or maybe not even upset, just maybe even just go in there and win the games. You get what I'm saying? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys go to Arkansas this year. You guys are on the road there.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I'm thinking about Arkansas' schedule. Do they have Georgia at home this year, or is that just kind of like one of those rotational games?
I haven't checked out Arkansas' schedule in about a month, and they're probably after I'd get done with Bama, I'm doing Florida, Miami, OU, USC, and then Arkansas. So they're down the road for me. I'll have all that probably next time.
I would say, I mean, I just think that, you throw that in there in the mix or whatnot, because let's be real. I mean, Alabama wasn't blowing out those teams or whatnot. I just think it's the fact that, some of it could be just situational as well, as far as the offensive line playing bad, because you're sitting there like, man, we got to score. We got to get some touchdown or field goal, whatever the case may be. We got to move the ball. And so when you look at the play calling, maybe that was rushing the offensive line and some of that as well. Especially you go back to the championship game. I mean, you guys got injured. I mean, the offensive line held up. It wasn't until late in the game where Bama just let the game get away from them. Georgia just got the best, but offensive line held up for the most part. It was just the fact that your targets were just really inconsistent. And that's another point. Texas fans will point out, man, y'all lost a Jai Hall, so and they picked him up, and they think that he's going to be all world next year and everything. So
hey, good luck to him. Good luck to him. That's all I can say, man. Just good luck.
He's going to be incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I look. I don't care, me being a Bama, that doesn't matter. I think it'd be very sad to see somebody of that talent not find their happiness and be able to go and pursue college football like that. So I wish Ajayi all the best. I think it'd be awesome to see him go out and do things. Vincent says, we got first world problems at Alabama. Most teams would love their situation. You are 100% right, Vincent. But the reason we do this is because everything is relative, right? Everything is relative. This is relative to Alabama expectations. That's how we have to control the narrative relative to this team's expectations. Also, we have college football Jonathan Lewis in here saying, did you guys talk about Reuben Owens to Louisville? Yeah, man. First thing we opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in here, before we do this any further, we instantly hit that. We have a lot of people y'all need to go subscribe to. One of them is a friend of the show, Jonathan Lewis, who would have been here this evening had he not been a good husband and taken his wife out to dinner. So, priorities are definitely in your favor there. Go subscribe to him. We have Chris Griffin of the Horns Down podcast right up here. We've got Indy Sooner. Be sure to check out their content. Constantly doing great live streams that must be watched. And, of course, Jant Sports down here with us as always. Same thing I asked about Oklahoma. I'm going to ask the same thing about Alabama. And then to close it, we'll have an Arch Manning discussion. But what's the one recruit, Jance, you're looking at for Alabama? And if you had to say this is a must-land prospect.
I would say Peter Woods from Thompson, only because, again, I'm a little biased. Thompson was one of my favorite schools. I've been watching them since they had Talia. So I'm a little biased. But Peter Woods, man, he's a hell of a, defensive tackle. Again, at 6'4", 270 pounds, he was a part of the rise up and kind of the come up of Thompson, because Thompson used to be they were bad. They were horrific. And then all of a sudden, the last 3 to 4 years, you look at guys like Talia Tagovailoa, you look at guys, like Peter Woods in there. You look at a Jeremiah Alexander, who Alabama just recently picked up. Those guys were part of it. So, for the most part, Peter Woods is a blue chip player. He's one of the top players, if not the best player right now, I think, in all of Alabama. And I think that's through all the classes. I think he might be the best out of all of them. An explosive athlete, explosive kid. And like I said, for the most part, the trenches has been the heart of Alabama's success throughout the years, throughout the Nick Saban era. So, of course, getting one of those, blue chip guys that you can pretty much put anywhere in the line, you can put him on edge if you want him to. I think he's going to get a little bit bigger. And I think he can probably play more of a 3 technique player. If not, again, you could put him as a stand-up outside linebacker. You could put him up at the 5 if you want him to. But that's probably, again, if there's any kid from this class that I had to choose, it would probably be him, only because he's at the top of the top when it comes to getting the in-state prospects. And, as much as we love to try to get these outside guys, we love to focus on Florida. We love Texas. We love Louisiana. At the end of the day, we got to stay at home, and we got to try to focus a little bit more on getting the top players there, especially when you're competing against Auburn, you're competing against Clemson, because they just love our state for some reason. So we got it. So Peter Woods is definitely a huge player that I would think that I would love to see at Alabama.
Yeah. JP, Chris, who's y'all's answer?
I would go with either. So I'm looking at them now because I had to go, because I was looking at Alabama ahead of time. I believe on what was it? Rivals were 24/7. I think I want to say Hicks. I mean, it just seems like something that somebody that you guys would be able to get. I know it seems like he's a Texas A&M lane, but I would say Hicks as
I
far
don't
as
know
the defensive line.
Hicks.
Huh?
I don't think I think we're real deep into our own state this year. I could be wrong here, so don't quote me on that, but I just think
I think you're right because I mean, literally, it seems like Alabama has all the defensive line talent this year for sure, as far as the high school ranks. But I would say that I mean, it just I don't know. When you think of D line, you think of Alabama or Georgia. You don't necessarily say. I mean, yeah, Texas A&M has had a few blue chips, obviously, but at the same time, I mean, it's Bama and Georgia, right? I don't know. I mean, it's a hard question to answer when you look. It's just Bama, You would maybe Arch, but I know we're going to get into that later. But you would say maybe Arch just to kind of round out that room for next year at least, I guess.
Yeah, it could be. I was just talking about that today. How Bama could look to take 2 quarterbacks in this class. It'd be tough to take 2 blue chip guys. Bama did it before, taking Tua and Mac Jones, but Tua was the high blue chip. I believe Mac Jones was a 3-star.
Yeah, he was barely, but he was a 3-star. He was a 3-star.
So I couldn't remember whether he was 2, but I digress there. They could take, but getting 2 blue chippers would be very difficult to do. JP, what about you?
It pains me to even say this name. But I think Brandon Ennis from Florida, who was at one time committed to Oklahoma, obviously decommitting after everything with Riley. But I think you guys are always good at receiver, but never hurts to get more blue chip wide receivers, and I think he's got a chance to be a really special one. I like his frame. I think he has, really good ability, high pointing the ball, and, you can never have enough of those. So that's what I would say. Yeah,
look, so I was going to go offensive line as well, and Roger actually commented the offensive lineman I was going to talk about, but I'm going to do a different answer because, we've talked about some offensive line. Francis Moagawa, what a prospect. If we can get him, that'd be awesome. USC had him in this weekend. The player, I wouldn't say I'd consider him must land, but just the player that if I had it my way right now would be committed to Alabama is 5-star running back Richard Young. Reuben Owens is off the board. Richard Young has such a deep skill set. He's a guy that could come into this room and just instantly be set for a really solid career. Very excited to see where he goes, but that would probably be the guy that I'm most interested in watching. Brandon Ennis is a great answer. That's someone who we would love to get in. Luckily, Alabama had a real – I personally – there are some people, when I do these videos, I'll have people comment and say, oh, wide receiver is a big position of need. Personally, I'm really intrigued to see what the wide receivers we got out of this past cycle look like between Kendrick Law, Aaron Anderson, Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond, and Shaz Preston. I really like that group. We've talked about this at length, so I'm interested to see what happens there, but you could never argue with that, bringing in Brandon Ennis. Let's end this with talking about some Arch Manning because he had a big visit to the Texas Longhorns this weekend. Texas exits the weekend with the commitment of 3-star tight end, teammate of Arch Manning, Will Randall. Where are we at, y'all, with Arch Manning's recruiting process, right? Chris, I'll start with you, and then we'll go down the line. What's your thoughts exiting this weekend?
Only God knows. And I do think that he's stringing Texas along. I mean, they've said that they don't want to go anywhere where they're going to be looked upon as the savior. I think that he doesn't want to go there simply because he knows all the pressure and everything that's going to come with that. I mean, it's going to be pressure either way because if he goes and plays at a school like Georgia, there's going to be pressure because people are going to be like, oh, well, I mean, it's a given. He has all that talent around him and that culture. Goes to Bama. Can he beat out those other guys? Can he beat out Simpson and all the rest of those guys? You get what I'm saying? But as far as Texas, I'm still not completely sold on the idea. I think he does like Sark a lot, but at the end of the day, it's really confusing how the relationship is there because Texas fans are so enamored with Mullet Boy that they think that Quinn Ewers is going to just be God's greatest thing to earth. So I don't really know how he fits into that, knowing that he's going there to sit behind somebody for 2 to 3 years, hell, and maybe 4 at the rate that they're going. You know, they have all this talent this year, but you're saying, okay, well, what are you guys going to do post Bijan Robinson and all that? Get what I'm saying? Post Isaiah Nayor, and then you only get one more year after this of Worthy if he's able to recreate what he did last year. So you're kind of looking at that and you're saying, is it really a model of success down there? So I mean that's kind of where I'm confused as far why Texas fans really think that they have a great shot. Plus, at the end of the day, you got their other boy who they think the world of. He's just a project though, and
Malik Murphy.
Yeah, Malik Murphy, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I think that Arch Manning, you know, what they're touting him up to be, he can go down there and win the battles. But I also think, you know, what's the point? I think really, in all honesty, was it last weekend or was it 2 weekends ago? Whenever he went and visited Alabama,
Arch was last weekend.
I think Alabama is to be honest with you, I think they're going to pull a wild card and Alabama will be the front runner. Simply because I think that he knows deep down. I think that if he goes there, I would say the other kid would decommit anyways. I don't think that you guys would take 2 quarterbacks because I think that quarterback right there would decommit simply because he knows the hype surrounding that kid. So I mean, that's just my thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Only God knows.
JP, what are you thinking?
I've talked to Texas fans about this for years. You know, you have like Chris said, you have Ewers who comes in now. They were all high on Malik Murphy before they even got Ewers. Now they got Ewers, so they have Ewers. They have Malik Murphy, who they said was borderline 5-star, right? And then you're telling me you're going to bring Arch Manning in. He's going to be comfortable. Now, I'm not saying he don't want to compete, right? But you're telling me he's going to be comfortable sitting behind Ewers, who would already have had a year. And then the next year, a competition with Malik Murphy, who, again, they think is just as good. And I'm not against competition. You have 2 5-star quarterbacks, which we have plenty of times as OU fans. It's what you want. But at the end of the day, when you have a name like that, I don't see it happening. I think he's going to go to Georgia. Personally, I think that Texas fans are a little bit delusional and in general, but also just in some of the ways that they're thinking about getting Arch to Texas, and that him and his family are just going to be cool with sitting around for 2 years. I do not think that that's the plan.
Jance, what's your thought?
Hold on. Frightening, whatever his name is, before you can start talking, bro, you got to fix your name before you can talk. Y'all running back room is not stacked like that. That blue kid is not going to see the field. Your running back room, especially this year, is not stacked because we're only going to see one running back. Bijan is going to get the boatload of the carries. You guys are so excited to sit around and you guys get so excited to talk about Roshan, Keelan Robinson. We only saw them whenever he was injured. We didn't see them at all last year. And your offensive line is terrible. So hopefully Bijan doesn't get injured playing behind 5 freshmen this year. So, I mean, that's just my rant. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, we sit. Come on, man, Texas fans, and they want to sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are in for it. You guys are only going to win maybe 8 games, 7 games this year. New coaching staff, new this, new that." Stop projecting your feelings on us. You went 5 and 7. You've underachieved the past 2 to 3 seasons. You know that. We're back. That did not help. Sam Ehlinger is terrible, and I hope you guys know that. Look at yourself in the mirror and say that. It will help you on this path to your, I don't even know, restoration of something. Because Texas sucks, and they always will. We know that. Please stop in the comments with that stuff, man. Gosh. All right, I'm sorry. That was it.
Y'all are savage. Jance, go ahead.
Savages, man. Now, I think Texas is on the right track a little bit there. You know, for the most part, I think it's all a huge guessing game because I think that Arch, you know, he's enjoying the process right now. You know, I think that I don't think that there's, this amount of like if you go to Texas that he'll just have this amount of pressure and it just be too much for him. Because I think again, you're carrying the Manning name. Like it's the most prestigious. You make an argument, it's the most prestigious football name in all of in all American football right now. So,
yep.
I think that no school is going to be too big for him. I think it can be, he can go to Jackson State, and again the Manning name. I think the amount of pressure and the expectation is going to be just absolutely insane. But again, I just think Texas, they're trying to do their best to get him. They're trying to do their best, and I feel like for the most part, you're getting a teammate of his. I feel like could be a big move for him because from what I've heard, those two are extremely close. And so, I can just imagine, when these guys are playing football and again, they're, it's Friday night or they're playing on Saturdays, or again, whatever they're spending time with each other. He had like, hey man, you got to check out you got to check out Texas. We got this event coming here, or, we have, just try to give him the inside scoop, trying to give him some inside information, try to, pull your strings a little bit together a bit. So, for the most part, it just seems like Texas might just be it, only because, again, I've heard Archie, I've heard his dad talk about Texas, so many good things about it, how he kind of, he wants his son to really create his own legacy. And I feel like Texas might be the location because, I'll be honest, I don't even know, I can't believe I'm going to say the name, but I can't believe Mullet Boy. Yes, I'm quoting Fred, but for the most part, I don't even know if he's going to really live up to the expectations like that. And I don't really even know if Texas will even be satisfied that much with it. So, again, it might even be a quarterback competition going into next year compared to the Alabama, where you have to compete against 2 or 3 other guys, including if Eli Holson continues to commit. Georgia, for the most part, we all know Kirby Smart doesn't like to play freshmen. He really likes to take his time and really go with the more experienced guys at the quarterback position. We've seen him with Justin Fields. We've seen it with Brock Vandagriff. For the most part, I mean, we're now going into another year in the Stetson Bennett era where Brock Vandagriff, former 5-star, is going to be he's going to be a sophomore going into his junior year in 2023, where he might finally get an opportunity. JT Daniels was a former 5-star guy that had over 1,800. He had over 1,800 yards, averaged over 300 yards a game. And you look at the next year, he had to take a seat to Stetson Bennett. So I don't know if Arch is looking for an opportunity, if he's looking for a chance to play as a freshman, I don't think he's going to get that opportunity at Georgia. He might have to honestly wait a couple years before he even got his shot there. So, I feel like the only school that's maybe a big name, the only school that maybe has established already good relationship, that's already known for, at least for in name, and Steve Sarkisian, a guy that is known for working with some really good quarterbacks. I feel like Texas would be the true destination compared to some of the other top prospects or some of the other top brand schools. Maybe an underrated school that I think no one's kind of talked about in this process is Ole Miss, only because we all know the reputation of Lane Kiffin, how great of an offensive genius he is, and the staff that he's he continues to kind of build up in order to work with these guys. And not to mention, again, you look at Eli Manning, he played there. So I think the legacy, right? For the most part, we all know his, grandfather played there. So the legacy that they've kind of built on, would not be surprised at all if maybe Ole Miss becomes maybe a silent commit somewhere down the line. Tennessee for the most part, with Hupel, and obviously with the way that they're kind of starting to get things going over there, they might be a silent contender. So. There's other schools that we have to really kind of consider, but it just seems like Texas, they're literally trying to do everything in their power to try to, get this kid along. And I just don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to be the complete answer there, which means that for the most part, it could be a quarterback competition that could result in Arch Manning starting as a freshman. So I feel like Texas has the slight lead, but, again, I feel like Alabama, Georgia, and the likes think those other schools are not as close to getting him as we're kind of expecting them to be.
So the interesting thing with this, right? Ole Miss would be cool. Here's my biggest question. Offense the most conducive to success for Arch Manning, or is he looking for something a bit more pro style? And if the answer is a bit more pro style, well, that's when Ole Miss becomes a bit hard, because Kiffin's offense, though it's the amalgamation it does tend to a little bit skew closer to non-pro than your traditional quote-unquote pro style. Now, I don't know what Arch Manning is looking for, right? I don't know that. I haven't gotten to talk to him. It's just going to be interesting to see. Here's the thing, though. There are 3 different pitches right now from the 3 major institutions, and all of them carry legitimacy. All of them carry some level of weight. At Alabama, it's the most sure thing, right, out of anywhere. That is the most sure thing. We saw Mac Jones play 1 year of college football and become a first-round draft pick. Put up huge numbers. Bama is the most sure thing out of all of these. Georgia is the second most sure. We know Georgia recruits unbelievably well. What we also know is that the only area we can even question Kirby, which right now Kirby has the last laugh considering they just got a ring, is the quarterback, right? We've seen blue chip prospects go to Georgia and not play. Georgia's still winning a national championship, which begs the question, what could they have done if they get a quarterback that's really explosive? So Arch at Georgia has the ability to be a part of a sure thing as well as change a narrative or fight to change a narrative. But if changing a narrative is the most important thing for Arch Manning, Texas is the best place. I mean, that has the biggest narrative to change, right? Bama's offense has been changed. That's been established. The narrative of Bama not being an offensive team, that's dead and gone. That's been a while, right? That's been a while. And look, in fairness, I think that another thing that separates Texas in all of this, you have Alabama, you have the GOAT, Nick Saban, but defensive guy, right? As much as the offenses at Alabama are clicking and they're top offenses, he's a defensive-minded head coach. Kirby Smart, defensive-minded head coach. Is it a big deal that of the 3 major, Steve Sarkisian is the offensive-minded guy? I don't know, but it is intriguing, right? It is interesting. Now, Frightening did ask this at the very beginning. Do we put stock into it carrying weight that Will Randall committed to Texas? I'll start with this, Frightening, and we'll end on this one right here after everybody goes. I think that it helps, but I don't think that it exponentially increases your chances. You get what I'm trying to say there? Does that make sense? Like, it certainly helps because now there's someone there that he knows, he has some innate familiarity with, but it's not like because Will Randall's going there, now Arch is going to be there as well. It's just something that you can utilize in a pitch that ultimately helps. Why wouldn't you do it? I'll pass it off to y'all for some closing comments on this, and then, yeah.
I was just going to ask a question here. Will we be putting that much stock into this kid if his last name wasn't Manning?
That's a good question. I think he's a very talented quarterback. I've talked about this before. I think that he has an understanding of defenses. I think he has an understanding of that. I don't know where he would be, but I do think that he would still be a blue chip prospect, right? So at that level, I think it becomes, I don't know, less important. If that makes sense, I don't know.
Yeah,
he's talented, but from what I've seen, and again, it's hard to evaluate high school players, but just getting a sense of it that's no like you knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be a star in a first round in the first pick. You knew Andrew Luck coming out of high school was going to be that dude. You knew Justin Fields has the potential of being that player, but you were a little bit more sure of Justin Fields being that dude, comparatively. I look at Arch and I think talent. I think he is a 5-star. He's talented as all heck, but there's just something that I just see from him that I'm not sure if he's in that Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Andrew Luck. I don't know if he's a part of that conversation yet, if he didn't have the Manning name.
Yeah.
I don't know that you need to be though.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are in rare air for a reason. I mean, I think generally much to talk about.
This class of quarterbacks, it's bananas this year. I think you said that earlier this year, Ty. Like, this class is crazy because it seems like to me there's a lot of 5-stars, but it's kind of boom or bust, like take your pick, because a lot of people would say that Arch is the best. A lot of people would say, well, obviously Malachi has to be the best. And some people may even go as far as saying that the Nico kid may be the next big thing. So, I mean, you really don't know. You're just kind of taking your best shot. But I just wonder, would he still be in this class or this top tier if his last name was changed?
I think so. Yeah. I think he'd still be discussed in that group. Where, I'm not sure, but I definitely think he would be. And I have a video talking about this, about the talent in the top 300. This isn't the deepest as far as top 300 we've seen. I actually think it was the 2020 recruiting class. Go back and check that out. Oh, my Lord. It was unbelievable how many quarterbacks in the top 300. This year, though, it's how many are not only in the top 10, but how many 5-stars. Because y'all's guy, Jackson Arnold, just hit 5-star status. By the way, something I said that would happen in December when he committed. Yeah. Y'all were here, right? I said it on live. One, because I got to see him play. I'm being in Denton. I've gotten to see him play a lot. Very talented. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Eli Holstein finishes out as a 5th star as well. Wouldn't shock me one tiny bit. He's got that skill set. He's got that skill set. So this year's quarterback class is just unbelievable. JP, passing it off to you.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like we've all been talking about, Arch is good. I do wonder. I'm not gonna say he's good. He's really good. He's obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the nation. I do wonder, obviously, with the Manning name, how much it gives credence to, like Chris said, but I just can't see him going to Texas. If he does go to Texas, maybe it is a narrative thing. I think it will be interesting to see how Quinn plays out, Jance, because you talk to some Longhorn fans, they think he's the best thing since sliced bread. So we'll have to see how that ends out, but I would still put my money on Georgia. I know that he would, have people to sit behind. I know that, Kirby doesn't have a lot of track record of playing 5 stars, but I think if anybody can change that, Arch probably would, simply because of his name. I do believe that, in my opinion, that he would carry some weight. But I do like the Ole Miss piece. I do think that they could be certainly a sleeper, and you can't excuse the family dynamic with Archie Manning, right, his grandfather, and then Eli also playing at Ole Miss. So, guess we'll see what happens.
Yep, Jance, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just like we're just gonna have to just see how the process just goes, man. For Arch, we're just gonna have to see how the process goes. I think that for the most part, like I said earlier, the kid's he's gonna enjoy his time. He's gonna enjoy the process. Whether again, I think Texas has a little bit of a slight advantage for it, but like I said, we don't. I mean, for the most part, who knows? I mean, Ole Miss, Tennessee, like I said, those are legacy schools for him because he's a Manning, and right there's gonna be a lot.
Tennessee, though.
Yep. So it's just like we're just gonna have to see, kind of like how I said a little bit earlier, man. But you look at Alabama, it's a for sure thing. But we don't even know if Bill O'Brien's even gonna be there next year. So it's kind of like, what's the relationship between Bill O'Brien and some of the coaching staff there with Arch Manning? I think Georgia, there's a question of whether if he's going to play or not, or whenever he's is he even going to have an opportunity to compete for a starting job? Or is it going to be another situation where he's going to have to wait 2 to 3 years before he finally gets another opportunity? I think for Texas, it's kind of, is Texas, can they develop the quarterback position? We know Steve Sarkisian's track record, but, we look at his first year at Texas, it just was not that good of a year. Did not live up to nowhere near lived up to expectations. And quite frankly, again, we don't Quinn Ewers the way that we saw him again in spring. And we saw his talent, we saw some of his ability, but he did not look, QB1. He did not look ready yet. So we don't even know if he's going to be the quarterback or if it's going to be Hudson Card. And if he is, depending on how that year goes with Texas, it could potentially say, I don't know if Texas is the right destination for me. It just seems like they're just not really developing quarterbacks the right way. So I feel like there's some question marks there. So again, when you look at Ole Miss and when you look at Tennessee, especially what they did last year with the quarterback position, you look at Hooker from Tennessee, then you look at the kid, I forgot his name, but he just got drafted. He just got drafted to the NFL. When you look at those two guys and the track record they have right there, it seems like that's more stable. It's more stable at those programs right now than at Texas. Then a for sure thing with again, Alabama's a for sure thing, but again, you have to question, if those guys will stay. I don't know if Bill O'Brien will stay or not. I mean, typically, again, an offensive coordinator in Alabama, the most you'll get out of them is 2 or 3 years, and then they're going off to the NFL. So, it's just, again, it's a big guessing game right now. Again, I have to go a little bit more of Texas, but man, like it's just, it's just a process that we're just gonna have to see. We're just gonna, because this is probably gonna go all the way down to either December or February. So it's, we're gonna be talking about this for a long time, but we're just gonna have to wait and see what Archie does.
Do y'all think that he could possibly take this as long as Terrell Pryor did?
Oh, he took that down to the man.
Because I mean,
JT Tuamalo. I feel like it could be a JT Tuamalo situation where he literally takes it down into like what was it? When did he make his commitment, in June?
Yeah, something like that, June or something. Yeah, it was late as hell.
So I guess I'm in the minority here because I think, one, as much as I've said, I think that everybody has a pitch. I've also consistently said I think Texas probably has the best right now for Arch Manning, given that Steve Sarkisian's an offensive mind. But I also don't think it's going to take long. I don't think he's going to wait too long to make his commitment. I don't know that he has any more official visits planned. From everything I've known, those 3 teams have been the major teams. And right now, I mean, Texas is in as good position as anybody for a 5-star quarterback, which at the end of the day, I mean, you'd love to have that. So that's about it. What'd you say, JP?
If they get Arch Manning, I'm gonna just log off of Twitter for 4 days.
They're gonna hype him up.
Not because I'm worried, because I'm sure that's what some of them will say in the comments, but just because of just the chatter. I mean, they're already talking in the comments right now. They're saying if Arch Manning was coming to OU, Chris and I would have felt how we feel. We didn't say he was a bad quarterback. I said I think he's elite. I'm just saying, does his name maybe give him more credence over quarterbacks that could be just as good or better? We always felt like Malachi was better, still do. We also have Jackson Arnold, who again is a 5-star in its own right. So it's not like we're not getting quarterbacks anymore. So, anyways, sorry, I just had to get out of my chest.
No, JP, you brought up a good point. Because this is what I was just thinking. What happens if they both turn out to be busts, right? Then Texas is in a similar situation that they had when they were losing to Maryland back-to-back seasons, right? With Bouchel and Ellinger. So, I mean, you kind of ask Texas, you have to ask Texas fans, like, do you really want that quarterback drama at your school right now, especially when y'all are trying to be on the up and up? Because I think there's nobody on this panel who believes that Texas is going to go out there and only win 5 games this year. I mean, I pray that happens. I hope it happens, but I don't believe it's going to happen.
No, I don't.
But I just think that, with Texas, you get Arch Manning. Well, what's the point of going out there and getting a guy like Quinn Ewers? You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, yes, you want to create competition. You want your room to be elite and all the rest of that. But, Texas fans are awfully hungry for not only, let alone a national championship, but a Big 12 championship at that. They want to be relevant again. They want people to look at them and say, no, consistently year in and year out, Texas is there. But you're sitting here adding that wrinkle to the fold. I mean, it's just going to be complete chaos there. I mean, at the end of the day, let's look at Quinn Ewers and seriously, just let's be serious about it. He's trigger happy when it comes to jumping, because he was scrambling pretty much looking for a place where he wanted to go, because Ohio State, in my opinion, was his last choice. I think that if he would have had to do it all over again, especially seeing Sark coming late, he probably would have waited and went there, or he would have tried to just do something with Lincoln while he was at OU. I mean, because at the end of the day, he was talking to Lincoln. Let's not act like he wasn't in consideration. But then, we had Caleb and all the rest of that stuff, and Lincoln was returning calls. But at the end of the day, I'm just looking at Texas like, do you really want that QB drama to come there? Because obviously the hope or the goal is for Quinn Ewers to go out there and show out this year and show that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, if not the best, right? And then you have Arch and you just bring him along. But what happens if you guys go out there and you only win 6 games or 7 games this year, and then everybody around the nation is like, yeah, I'm not completely sold on Mullet Boy, right? So then you kind of create this chaos because now you got Arch coming in, and then yet again, you're sitting there saying, okay, we want our true freshman quarterback to come in here and play behind these sophomore offensive linemen now. I don't know. I mean, that's just me. That's just my 2 cents about it.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure getting not one but two five-star quarterbacks that were former number 1 overall recruits. Like that's a lot of pressure. And if Quinn doesn't work out, how do you expect Archie Manning to work out? Because I feel like they're both in the same ballpark as far as talent. I feel like Archie has a little bit more mobility to his game, but it's not like he's running like a 4.4 or a 4.3. It's not like he's out of this world with that talent. So for the most part, you have two extremely talented quarterback prospects that you just can't somehow in some way develop. And you got, Texas for the most part. They hired Sarkisian from Alabama. He brought in a couple of our former assistants to try to help out, guys like Jeff Banks, try to help, he got these guys because he's trying to establish a pipeline. And if you can't even develop guys like Quinn Ewers, and now you get Archie Manning in your camp and you can't get him right, it's like it's hard to recover from that, especially when you're about to make your move to the SEC in about 2 or 3 years, and you've already showed signs when you got absolutely destroyed by Arkansas. How do you expect to handle some of those other mid-table teams? Because you can handle a team like South Carolina, but when you're in a pod potentially and you got to go against Arkansas and some of those and LSUs of the world, that's going to be. You're just going to mess up the entire momentum of the program if you can't even get these number 1 overall recruits, these guys that are supposedly guys that were guaranteed to be great players, star players, messing that up. That's just going to mess up the reputation of Texas even more.
Well, I think once again, I'm probably in the minority here because I don't expect those quarterbacks not to work, because even though Texas didn't have great offensive line play last year, that offense wasn't the issue. I mean, they were getting theirs on offense. And now you introduce Quinn Ewers into the equation. Will it take some time? Maybe. I don't know, right? I haven't been in practice. I don't know exactly where he is, but I do know he's a very, 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 very gifted player. Mm-hmm. And Clark was fielding incredible offenses last year. So I look at Texas's woes, and I never looked at it and thought, this is on the quarterback, right? And so as it pertains to Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers, Chris, to answer your question, maybe I'm the type that likes pressures, but line them up every single year. Bring me in a 5-star quarterback, and we'll figure out which one works.
What does Spencer say? Pressure is a privilege. I get it, but it's just the fact that the circus that he is going to bring. You've already seen the 3-ring circus, the cheap 3-ring circus, the Joe Dirt circus with Mullet Boy, but you haven't seen the type of circus that a Arch Manning would bring, and the demands that he would bring.
Right. So I think if you're there, you're inevitably prepared for whatever there is to come, because you're at an institution that garners so many eyes. There's so many talking heads talking about the Longhorns all year round. And so I just don't know that will inevitably be as big of a factor as we think it is, because win, lose, or not, people are talking about the Longhorns. They're just one of those institutions. And so that's kind of the nature of being a commit to the University of Texas, is being able to take some level of added pressure. And it comes with a lot of your blue chip institutions, right? Alabama. There's an innate pressure with being a commit to the University of Alabama because you're going to Alabama. Texas is kind of the same way. So I'm very intrigued. I think that the quarterback isn't what I'm worried about with Texas. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about some of the other pieces, and I'm more worried. And I think worried is a strong word. I'm intrigued about what's going to happen on the defense, right? That's what I'm very intrigued about. I'm intrigued about the offensive line. I have faith in Quinn, right? And I'll put it out right now. I have more faith that he will be very good than he'll bust, right?
He's got the weapons.
Crow, what's up?
He's got the weapons.
Yeah.
He does have unbelievable. I mean, Texas has arguably, they can argue they have a top 3 wide receiver room in the nation. No doubt about it. I mean, their wide receiver talent is unreal. What they have. They're great. It's the offensive line. If they get that together, I mean, their offense could be fantastic. Could be very good. But, guys, I think that'll about do it for us this evening. We've gotten people in chat riled up. We've gotten riled up. And I have some food waiting on me. So as I pass it along, let them know where they can find you at. We do this every 5:30 Mondays at 5:30 Monday evenings. And yeah, if y'all want guests on, you let me know who, and I'll try and get them on. And it's always a good time. But Chris, where can they find you at?
Hey, you guys can find us at the Horns Down Pod on Twitter. You can find me at Chris with a K. My guy Seth Oliveris. Hey, we got a lot of content. You can find us on Google Podcasts. You can find us on Anchor Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcasts are at. Check out our YouTube page, but definitely check out our Twitter. Got a lot of stuff that's planned. I know I said it a lot of times, but got a lot of stuff planned for the season or whatever. Want to keep it fresh, want to keep it relevant. But hey, definitely follow everybody on this panel. JP, what's up?
Yeah, go ahead and find me at Indy_Sooner. That's my Twitter page. And then on YouTube, the Indy Sooner YouTube channel. Every Wednesday night, do the JP and Trav show. My good friend at Travis Skoll, who also has his own radio show on KREF on Wednesdays at 2:30. So make sure if you're an OU fan, you check that out. Even if you're not an OU fan, go ahead and check that out. And come over Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time to the Indy Sooner page and check us out at the JP and Trav show.
Yeah, so I guess for me, if you want to, get in contact with me, definitely hit me up on Twitter, Gen716, Instagram, Gen Sports, YouTube. If also you want to search up for some of my videos, we also do some stuff there. Also check me out if you want to on Buffalo Fan Base Sports. I recently just joined them, part of Fansided. Excited to work with them. Been working for like the last, I think, 3 to 4 weeks. Been really cool. So you can check me out there at Buffalo Fan Base Sports. But yeah, like I said, if you guys want to get in contact with me, talk some sports, I'm pretty much open all 24/7. Definitely slide in the DMs or wherever you want to try to do. And we, like I said, we can definitely make it happen. Like I said, I'm just saying, not in that way, but for the most part, definitely. Again, if you want to talk to the sports, chat it up with me. We definitely got that as well. Definitely talk with me about it.
Hey, gents, I was going to tell you before you get off of here, man, Baker is the answer. Go get Baker.
Oh, boy. You just mad. Texas by 40.
We can have that conversation another day, but he's right.
Guys, as always, it's been a great time. Roger says it was his first show. Thank you for coming in, Roger. Great to have you in here. It's always a bunch of fun. Matt says he's finally off work and missed the whole thing, but that's all right, man. You know we do this all the time, and you'll catch the next one. We'll be chopping this up, and with that, we'll see you later. That's it, guys.